I use HDR photography a lot, especially when I take photos of landscapes. This technique is very good when there is high contrast in the picture, for instance between sky at sunset and the landscape, where you want to have details in both places. I want to show you how I worked on one particular photo, a photo taken in the evening in a farm field in Ås in Norway, where I live. So let's have a look at how I worked on this photo. This is the photo taken in a farm field last fall. It is composed of 5 different exposures, and I will explain to you a little bit how is the process to get to this result. So let's have a quick look at the 5 exposures first. This is the standard exposures out of the camera. I have set the aperture to f16 and exposure time is then automatically set at 0.8 seconds. Quite okay photo, but you know, you really don't get a lot of details in the sky. Then we have one that's underexposed 2-stop. Look at how many more details we now get in the sky. And overexposed 2 stops. Well, now we have the details in the trees that we don't get really on the other exposures. And then -1 and +1. So those are the 5 exposures we will be working with. So my first step now is to define all of them and export them to the program called HDR Efex Pro 2. This is the program that's being done for the actual HDR processing. It takes a little time now to get them into that exported into that software. Sometimes before I do that, I do some batch editing on all of the exposures first, like some cropping, for instance. Okay, now things are coming into the HDR Efex Pro 2. The first we are asked here now is to see if we want a question about whether I want it aligned. I always do that, although it's not so necessary when we have using a tripod. And then there's the question of ghost reduction, which removes some of the image artifacts that are created by merging images together. I usually just try and have a little bit look at it. For instance, let's just turn it off and see how it will look. And it will be like this. Well, I think in this case we will leave on the ghost reduction, and we click here to create the HDR. Let's expand a little bit here while we are waiting, so we have a better view. And what will happen now is that it is processing these 5 photos together into using a number of different presets that we can then select as a basis for how we want to treat the picture further on. So now we are getting the first ones ready, and you really see this is the default picture, but you already now see how many more details you get in all parts of the photo. There are a lot of presets, and we can just flip through some of them. Some of them are really overdoing the effects, and you really see this is an HDR photo. They are emphasizing different elements in the processing. I usually, on landscapes photos, take as a starting point the one called dark. As an initial, it is not as I want it, but I do a couple of adjustments right away. I take the structure down a lot. I reduce, because this preset also has a quite high saturation. I go a little bit up on exposure because it is actually a little too dark. So let's say we will start here. And for me, this is like now a starting point. Maybe I reduce here a little bit on contrast. And I think now we are basically at a good starting point for a photo. Sometimes there are some different alternatives you can click here on HDR method, for instance. I will usually try to just click the different ones here and see if I like the alternatives better. I'm not very much into all the technical details myself. I just like to test out and see or does it make? But I often find that this dark preset is actually a good starting point. So now I'm done with this editing, and I click save, and the image, merged image, will get back into Lightroom. You can do much more in HDR Efex Pro, and I'm sure some people will actually do more there than what I'm doing. But okay, we now have an emerged image here. We go into the development module of Lightroom, and we have a very good starting point for editing. I'm not going to go through everything I do here, but I usually do some kind of playing around with different. Maybe I will play a little bit more with contrast. I often like to have a little bit on vignetting on the landscape photos. So we go down here, and if it, this will be too much, of course. I usually find that around 25 or something like that just gives an idea and focuses your eyes into the core of the photo. Sometimes I need to lighten up exposure a little bit after doing this. We can add a little bit more vibrance in the photo, and in the end we will also do a little bit of sharpening. For now, I'll just don't pay too much attention to it. And I think, we are more or less done with the photo. This is, of course, very quick in real life. I will do it much more careful and study details and work back and forth. But this is basically the process. So that's it. It may look hard, but it really is not. It's just a matter of getting enough practice. So try it, and good luck with your photographs.